It all started on April the 29th, 1998, when the Nigerian military government, led by General Sani Abacha, awarded Oil Prospecting License 245, also known as OPL245, to an unknown and newly registered company. The name of the company? Malabu Oil and Gas Limited. Then 3 years after, on July the 2nd, 2001, President Olusegun Obasanjo revoked the license. And that marked the beginning of the series of controversies and tussles that gave birth to the OPL245 saga, tagged by sections of the media as a Malabu scandal. There are 1,001 questions over the saga. What actually went down? Why did President Obasanjo revoke OPL245 in 2001? Why did President Goodluck Jonathan return the oil block to Malabu in 2010? What was the interest of the Abacha family in OPL245? What was the interest of President Muhammadu Buhari, whose government filed criminal charges against the principal actors? How did Mohammed Bello Adoke become the central figure in the court cases? And most importantly, why did Nigeria lose all the major OPL245 court cases in Italy, the UK, and Nigeria? Questions, questions, questions. Now what you're about to hear is the inside story of the OPL245 affair the way you have never heard it before. The story has been told in bits and pieces, but now we tell you in authoritative detail. My name is Kayode Okikiolu, gentleman of the press, and this is a Malabugate story. So let's start from the very beginning, shall we? You see, Nigeria discovered oil in commercial quantities in 1956 when Shell BP, as it was then known, hit the black gold in Oloibiri in the Niger Delta. Well, Oloibiri is located in present-day Bayelsa State. And in 1958, Shell BP began production and export. Now, there was no huge revenue for Nigeria until 1973, when the Arab-Israeli War led to a spike in oil prices. So oil-producing countries experienced their very first major oil boom, and the world has never remained the same again. Now, that was the beginning of Nigeria's stupendous oil wealth. However, despite the strategic nature of oil to the economy and politics of Nigeria, well, exploration was being done by only foreign companies. Well, the National Oil Company, which is now known as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, only exists to manage Nigeria's interest in the production ventures. So, between 1985 and 1993, General Ibrahim Babangida, who was a military president at that time, then decided to get indigenous companies fully involved in the oil industry. He introduced the Indigenous Exploration Program in 1993 to sort of incentivize Nigerian companies to participate in oil exploration and production. Now, one of the incentives was to lower the entry barrier through a concessionary signature bonus of $20 million. So local companies were also granted a special dispensation to engage oil majors' technical partners. So early beneficiaries included Oriental Energy Resources Limited, owned by Alhaji Mohammed Ndimi, Consolidated Oil Limited, owned by Dr. Mike Adinuga, and Famfa Oil Limited, owned by Mrs. Folorisho Alakija. But the government of General Sani Abacha, who became head of state in November 1993, awarded several prospecting licenses in 1998. OPL246 was awarded to the South Atlantic Petroleum Sapetro in February 1998. Well, Sapetro, by the way, is owned by General T.Y. Danjuma, former Chief of Army Staff and an associate of General Sani Abacha. OPL245, on the other hand, was awarded to a company known as Malabu Oil and Gas Limited. But then, General Abacha died suddenly on June the 8th, 1998. Before we delve into the intriguing story of Block 245, here are some quick facts.
The oil block is 150 kilometers off the coast of the Niger Delta and 1,000 meters below sea level. By 2006, about 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent had been discovered in Etan and Zaba fields in the block. In 2011, Open Economics, the Italy-based economic think tank, projected that Block 245 would cumulatively increase Nigeria's GDP by $41 billion and generate $3.9 billion in tax revenues to the Federation over the 25-year lifespan of the project. In 2018, Resources for Development Consulting, a Canadian think tank, projected revenues of between $9.8 billion and $15.6 billion to the Federation under different scenarios over the project lifespan. The block would add at least 150,000 barrels per day to Nigeria's output when production starts fully. Therefore, by every measure, Block 245 is not a little asset.
You see, when President Obasanjo came to power in May 1999, he revoked many OPLs awarded by General Abacha, but he did not touch OPL245 and OPL246. Well, the same month, Chief Dan Etete, former Minister of Petroleum Resources, came out as a consultant and a public face of Malabu, the allottee of Block 245. And Malabu made a down payment of $2.04 million out of a $20 million signature bonus, and this left a balance of $17.96 million. On March 9, 2001, Mr. Macaulay Ofure, the director of the Department of Petroleum Resources, then DPR, but now NUPRC, the oil industry regulator, wrote to Malabu, giving the company the go-ahead to develop the block. Thereafter, Malabu approached Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company Limited (SNEPCO), which is a subsidiary of Royal Dutch Shell, to propose a joint development under what is called farm-in agreement. Now, under a farm-in agreement, SNEPCO, as a technical partner, was to take 40% stake in the block, while Malabu will retain 60%. So SNEPCO was to pay $17.96 million. You remember the balance of the signature bonus, and bear the costs of exploration and development. But that's not all. It was also to bear the costs of Malabu's obligations. It would amount essentially to SNEPCO giving a loan to Malabu to pay for its own share of the costs. Well, Malabu will then repay the loan from its share of oil production. But then SNEPCO initially was reluctant to take up the offer, but then it said it did after receiving some written representations from Malabu's registered shareholders that they, get this, were the only two shareholders, and that Etete and Mr. Mohammed Abacha had no interest in Malabu. SNEPCO also said it obtained assurance from the Nigerian government that it had no intention to revoke the block from Malabu. Now, on March 29, 2001, SNEPCO assigned its rights and obligations under the farming agreement to Shell Nigeria Ultra Deep Limited, which is its sister company, with the consent of Malabu, of course. Now, March 30, 2001, Malabu and Shell Ultra Deep executed the agreement, but Shell Ultra Deep took the 40% stake and became the operator of the block under a JOA, as a joint operation agreement. Fast forward to April 6, 2001, where Shell Ultra Deep issued a check of $17.96 billion to the federal government for the balance of a signature bonus, although it was not cashed, as Nigeria presented a check at Citibank, New York, instead of Citibank, Nigeria. Well, I need to grab a seat for this one. You see, with the regulatory approval of the joint operation agreement, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources issued Malabu with the oil prospecting license number 245. It was dated May 15, 2001 and effective from April 29, 1998, which is the original date of award. The title deed was then forwarded to Malabu via a letter dated May 24, 2001. And all was well, or so everyone thought. Suddenly, on July 2, 2001, the Obasanjo administration announced the revocation of OPL245 from Malabu. Now that was a major twist in the tale. In its letter to Malabu, the DPR simply said the allocation had been withdrawn and the title deed revoked. Etete would later allege that Obasanjo wanted to take over the block and that his resistance led to the summary revocation. Obasanjo denied. and threatened to sue him for defamation, but did not follow through. In April 2001, Shell, Ultradeep, and ExxonMobil were invited by the federal government to compete for the block as production contractors to the NNPC, which owned the block. So Shell Ultradeep, which was Malabu's technical partner before the revocation, was thereafter awarded OPL245 by the federal government in May 2002. Shell Ultradeep was asked to pay a new signature bonus of $210 million since it was no longer a concession under that indigenous exploration program. Yes. When Shell Ultradeep was awarded OPL245 in May 2002, it commenced International Chamber of Commerce arbitration proceedings against Malabu, apparently to protect itself over the new state of affairs. So in August 2002, Malabu also commenced proceedings in a New York federal court against the Nigerian government, SNEPCO, Shell Ultradeep, and other Shell entities. So Malabu also petitioned the Nigerian House of Representatives over the revocation, and in May 2003, the House of Representatives issued its findings in favor of Malabu, concluding that OPL245 was legally awarded to Malabu and that the revocation should be set aside. But that's not all. Also, it recommended that Shell Ultradeep pay $550 million compensation to Malabu. Well, President Obasanjo did not act on that report, and in September 2003, Malabu filed a case in a Nigerian court against the federal government, NNPC, and Shell Ultradeep, seeking a reinstatement of OPL245 and an award of $100 million in damages. But fast forward to November 2004, the International Chamber of Commerce panel ruled in favor of Shell, describing as lawful the actions of the Nigerian government in revoking that license. But the ICC also declared that Shell was not to blame for the revocation, and the company was right to participate in the bidding process after that revocation. Well, in December 2003, Shell Ultradeep paid $1 million of a signature bonus and deposited the balance of $209 million in an escrow account at the JP Morgan Bank in London because of the dispute, of course. Well, the escrow account was operated jointly by the oil company and the federal government of Nigeria, and that's pending the resolution of all the disputes. Well, NNPC then entered into a production sharing contract, a PSC, with Shell Ultradeep for the development of OPL245. And while all legal tussles were going on, Shell Ultradeep began oil prospecting. And on March the 16th, 2006, Malabu's case at the Federal High Court was struck out based on the Public Officers Protection Act. But the court ruled that Malabu filed its action out of time. But Malabu was dissatisfied and it lodged an appeal. You see, while Malabu's appeal was pending in court, something interesting happened.